Hello everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I am doing a tutorial on the Bliss Die set. So this set comes with this 4x4 die. There's also this die here that can be layered in that middle section here if you would like that. There's also the 3x4 Bliss Die, and it has these two little petals, and this also comes with the petal die, which helps you cut that shape easier than rolling that whole 3x4 die through. There's also the 3x3 Bliss Die, and it comes with this shape here that fills in that little corner piece, and there's also this corner shape that will help you fill in the little corners in the 4x4 Bliss Die. Alright, now that you have been introduced to the Bliss Die set, let's get started with the demo. To use the Bliss Dies, you will of course need a die machine. This is the Sizzix Big Shot. I have a magnetic plate on the bottom here, followed by the plastic plate. And I have the 4x4 Bliss Die facing up, with the cutting parts facing up, followed by a piece of cardstock and another cutting plate. And you can see that top one's pretty scratched up. And I'm rolling it through the machine. And I have the 4x4 Bliss Die here. You can see it came out really nicely. Next, I have the 3x4 Bliss Die, and I'm going to take the same steps again. I have a piece of cardstock here that's just a little bit larger than the die itself. So a lot of people, when it comes to the Sizzix machines, I just want to note you can either have the die facing towards the bottom plate or the top plate. It doesn't really matter. A lot of people ask why we have the dies facing up on the Sizzix machines, and it is because if you are familiar with the Sizzix, you know that the plastic plate tends to get bent and warped, and I find that if you're cutting down on it, that the die shape itself also can be warped. And it's really important for them not to get warped because you're going to be fitting these dies on the grid paper, and if they're off a little bit, then you might not be able to line them up correctly on the grid lines. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's your personal preference. Just now, I finished cutting the 3x3 Bliss Die, and the paper is stuck within the die itself, so you can always use a sharp pair of tweezers and stick it through a hole in one of the corners to help that piece of paper come right out. So always have tweezers handy for these die cuts. Right here I have a 12x12 sheet of grid paper that's called Between Toes, and you can get it in our summer grid collection. And I have this bright pink color for the Bliss Dies right end. So for today I'm doing a Caribbean Christmas layout. So we stayed at a Caribbean beach resort during Christmas time one year at Disney World, and I didn't want to use the traditional forest green or brick red for Christmas. I decided to use the bright green and the bright pink colors as a fun play on a Caribbean Christmas. So I do choose my colors a lot of times based on the theme of my photographs. And these are two very bright colors. I'm the type of person who doesn't use a lot of bright colors, but I thought it would be fun for, like I said, the Caribbean Christmas theme. So if you're trying to figure out where the middle is, I count 4 squares over and then 4 squares down. And if you're putting a 4x4 square in the middle, you can count that number of square spaces on the grid paper to figure out where this die needs to go. So I know that left corner of the die goes in that left corner of where I counted over. So 4 spaces counting from the left side of the grid paper, and then 4 spaces down, and you know where to line that up. Next, I'm going to glue the back of the 3x4 Bliss Die, and altogether you should have 4 of these to create the Bliss design. A common question I get is, why do I use my finger to roll back the glue dispenser? And if your dispenser is really full, which mine is, you can easily roll it along your die cuts without any problem. But when it becomes halfway full, unfortunately, it does not roll very well and it gets stuck. And in that case, I feel like it might tear or bend or warp my die cuts because they're very thin. So I feel like I have to push it back, and I just tap it along the spaces I want to put the glue. So for those of you who have been wondering that, that's your answer. Anyway, so I just put the 3x4 Bliss Die right next to the 4x4, and the petal part should be right next to that 4x4 Bliss Die. So right here, I already went ahead and glued the back of these three, and in the end, you should have a design that looks like this. So all those the petal side of the 3x4 should be right next to the 4x4 Bliss Die. Right here, I am now gluing the 3x3 Bliss Die, which altogether you should have 4 of those to make the Bliss design. And again, I'm using my glue. I'm just in the habit of rolling it with my finger even though it's full, so that's why you keep seeing me use my finger. Alright, so the corner should make a circle. Well, it should be placed in the Bliss design so that you see this circle on each corner. So that corner should be facing towards that 4x4 Bliss Die. And the repositionable glue is always handy because, as I said, sometimes you don't get it on the grid paper quite right. So it's nice to be able to pick it up and stick it on the correct way. All right, and to save on time, I did glue the back of the other 3x3 sizes. And I'm just carefully putting them on the grid paper, lining them up on the grid lines. And in the end, you should have a design that looks like this. So basically, it creates a design with 4 circles, and it's really neat. Once you have all your Bliss Die cuts placed on the grid paper, the next step is to fill it with photos. And I've decided to show you guys why I chose the photos I have. Of course, you have to make sure the die is going in the direction you want to cut your photograph so it lines up within the Bliss space. There, the 2 people were far back enough they could fit within the wider space of the 3x3 die. Here I had the 3x4 Bliss Die with the petals face on the left side here. And I chose this Christmas tree photo because that Christmas tree, you know, it's pretty much a straight line that can fill in this section right here. And there's nothing that's going to be, it's a Christmas tree. Usually I'm a little more picky about cutting people than objects. Here I have this photograph and the person is farther away, so that's my preference. I like using photos where people are farther away and they can fit within these spaces. And the 3x4 die has this pointy section which works well for this photograph. It works so perfectly because there's that pointy part of the building right there. And this 3x4 die is an adventure level, and I'm going to say it is a very adventurous die. Now the 3x3 die here is generally pretty easy. You do have to worry about that curve, that corner piece, and this one I'm gonna have to cut it very carefully because his head could easily be cut off there. He happened to be small enough to fit within that space, but again, you want to be careful. The 3x4 die here, you notice I'm not using too many people. It's because it's a little bit harder. You have to make sure the people are on the right side of the photograph, basically for the 3x4. Here, again, the person is further away in the photograph. I'm not cutting them in an awkward way. And here are the 3x4 again, which works really well for scenic photographs or detail photographs like the trees. And you do want to keep in mind it has that pointy space. And when cutting your photographs, you really only need them to line up on the inner part of the 3x4 die. So there's the 2 cuts, right? One's on the outer edge and one's kind of on the inside. The photos need to just fit inside in the inner part of the die. So if you're getting a tight cut, that's the line the cut lines you need to worry about anyway. So as you can see, as far as the portraits go, I chose photographs where the people are farther away and they're a bit smaller and can fit within those spaces. And just so you know, for the 4x4 Bliss Die, I'm going to fill it in with white cardstock. Once you have all your photographs planned, the next step is to cut your photographs. So just take your time, and you definitely want to make sure that the die is placed in the direction you want your photograph to be cut. So there I had the little corner piece on the bottom left of my photo. Here I made sure on the 3x4 that the petal pieces are on the left side of this Christmas tree photograph here. So as I said, take your time and take care and double check to make sure you're cutting your photos in the correct direction you want it to go on the layout. Because that might be problematic if it's upside down or sideways, right? So the photo was sliding around a little bit too much here, so to make it the die more secure, I am using washi tape here. And washi tape is also good to use if your die cut is really, really close to the edge of the photograph and you want to make sure it's going to cut properly and not be off even by a little bit. At least for me, it drives me crazy when it's off. So washi tape's always handy to have if you need extra security, I guess, for your die and photo. And I know a lot of people talk about the Sizzix machine because the die, when facing down with the photo below it, you know, the magnetic plate helps stick that die down and then you don't have to worry about it. But again, unfortunately, I find that the plate itself warps so much, I feel like I can't even sometimes get the die to stay down on the magnetic plate very well when it starts doing that. So anyway, if anyone has tips on the plates for the Sizzix machines, you're welcome to share in the comments below. Alright, so I have this photograph, and yes, with the 3x4 Bliss Die, keep in mind it has that little pointy shape in there, and it can be really tough to get photographs to fit in that space. And that's why earlier I was saying the Bliss Die really is adventurous because the shape is really, I would say it's going to be a little more challenging. You're going to have to carefully plan your photographs that can fit in that little space pretty well. So anyway, we have a lot of other adventure dies, but I find this one to be the most adventurous. Alright, I have this 3x3 photo here, and again, I'm being really careful because that corner part is really close to the person here, but it looks like it cut really well, so thankfully it worked out well. Alright, this is the last time I'm cutting with the 3x3 Bliss Die, and I made sure that corner was in the bottom right. So again, with the 3x3, you want to make sure you pay attention to where that corner is, and on the 3x4 Bliss Die, you want to pay attention to where the petals are placed over your photograph. Alright, and my last cut, I am cutting the 4x4 Bliss Die, which is cardstock, so I switched out the crease pad for a plastic plate. The crease pad doesn't necessarily cut through paper very well, so that's why I don't use it for the paper. And I just kept that middle section. Alright, now is the easy part, and I think the most satisfying part is being able to glue these photographs in the designated spaces. So here we have the Bliss Die. Again, take your time when you cut these photographs. Like this 3x4 Bliss Die here, you can see it has that pointy side. Call it pointy, I guess. And that's going, like I said, to be a little more adventurous for those of you. I would definitely, if you have not done an adventure die, I would definitely not recommend Bliss as your first one. Definitely try out something like X Factor, Diamond Mine first. So this is for those of you who are really wanting to take on a challenge. And I have this middle piece here that I'm now sticking in the 4x4 Bliss Die here. And of course, it's always easy to cut paper, right? When in doubt, if you don't have photographs, you can always fill in certain spaces with paper. Now I'm going to start cutting with the extra pieces that come with the Bliss Dies. This one's the little petal piece, and this will fit within the 3x4 Bliss Die. As you can see, it's really easy. It's really nice to have these dies so you don't have to roll in an entire 3x4 die. And since this is just white cardstock, I can kind of place them wherever I want. Obviously, if you're using a pattern paper or photos, you want to take extra care and also cut in the direction you're going to place it on the grid paper. So, like I said, I had an easy one today with just white cardstock, but take care if you're using a pattern paper to fill in those spaces. All right, the rest of the spaces are going to be filled with photographs, and here I'm going to show you a little bit of how I cut with these little corner extra pieces. So I placed this bigger one right in the corner, and I did use washi tape to keep it secure. Right here I'm rolling it through the machine, and once I'm done I'm just going to peel that out. And sometimes you don't necessarily need tape to make sure it's secure, but I wanted to make sure I had enough room for the smaller corner size. So yes, you can place them right next to each other on the photo. And after making this video, I did realize, okay, so you can actually cut with both of these dies at the same time. You don't have to do what I'm doing here and cut them one at a time. You could place them on the photo together, put washi tape over each one of them, and you can roll it through the machine at the same time. Sometimes when I'm making these videos, I'm not thinking quite as clearly, and then later I realize, oh, I could have shown them that. So just so you know, you can cut with these dies both at the same time instead of one at a time, and that'll be much quicker for you. Alright, so I have the corner here, and as you can see, pretty much I placed them in each corner of the photo here just to make it easier. Next, I need to cut these little corner pieces in the 3x4 die, and unfortunately, this set doesn't come with the smaller version of those pieces, so I'm just placing them on the photo where they can fit and then cutting around it so I can save the rest of the photograph for other cuts, because obviously if I rolled the entire 3x4 die at the same time, then I kind of wasted some of the photographs. So I am just cutting little bits and pieces with my scissors here so I can use up more of the photograph. Alright, once I placed those carefully in the die, I put my plastic plate on top, but unfortunately one of them moved, and so I decided to use washi tape to help my photos and my die stay securely together. So if you are going to cut the pieces smaller, make sure that they cover the entire cut section you want it to be shaped into, or else it might be off by a little bit. Alright, just roll it through the machine. Now I can keep these little pieces. And of course, the next step is to glue down each of these pieces on the grid paper. And instead of putting the glue on each individual little piece, I decided to glue just directly on the grid paper, and I find that can be a little bit faster. And here, to fill these spaces, I used a photograph that was actually a close-up of the Christmas tree on the right side of the layout here. So this is the kind of photograph that's great for filling in these tiny little spaces. So if you don't have, which most of you probably don't have photographs that'll of people or animals or something that are that small. So these more decorative photos, that's what I call them, are very nice to fill in these spaces. And I think it helps add to the memory of having this close-up of the Christmas tree on the page too. And if you don't have little photographs like what I have, you can use pattern paper instead. So there are multiple options you can use to fill in these small little spaces. Alright, as a bonus, I'm showing what I do to fill in the middle here. I have 2 letters from alphabet 4 and the little palm tree I cut out from the 1x1 Grand Palms set. So that's what I'm using here to fill this middle space. The CMB are initials for Caribbean Beach. That's the resort we stayed at, and the palm tree of course goes with that Caribbean theme. And I have these little dot stickers. They're from Doodlebug Design, and I wanted to make it look like the 3x4 and the 4x4 were actually kind of attached, and so putting this little dot sticker there kind of makes it appear as if they should be attached together. So you can see the final result here of the layout and how those little stickers just really add to the design. It's really fun to add in little embellishments like that. Alright, we've actually reached the end of today's demo, and as you see, the Bliss Die is very adventurous, and in the end you get this really pretty layout What I love about the Bliss Die is these little petal looking pieces. I think that's one of my favorite things about the Bliss Die. Alright, if you enjoyed this demo, please give this a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe. We don't want you guys to miss out on future tutorials, and there's always more coming and always more tips and tricks on the way. Alright, I hope you guys have fun scrapping at home, and I'll see you next time.